Good morning, children. Om Namah Shivaya. So I think you read your textbook. I think you people understood about menstrual cycle, fertilization, and sex determination. So I hope you are clear with that. Now let us move on to the next topic, which is implantation. So once the zygote has been formed with the help of haploid ooted and haploid sperm, by fusing up together, the zygote has to give rise to a new organism. So the first cell of a new organism is the zygote. Okay, now what is implantation? So implantation is nothing but the attachment of the zygote to the uterus of the females. Only then the growth of the zygote happens and zygote turns into a living organism. Okay, so it completely develops and it becomes a living organism in the uterus of the females. Okay, so we know that where is fertilization happening? We saw that fertilization, that is fusion of this egg and the sperm, it happens in the ampullary isthmic junction. So this is the place where the fertilization happens, and uterus is seen here. So it is away from the oviduct. So what should the fertilized fertilized zygote do? It has to move towards the uterus for implantation. So how are they moving towards the uterus and how do they get implanted? So let us learn about it. So this zygote, it carries mitotic division. Okay, so it carries mitotic division. Mitotic division means it is a type of cell division where a cell divides into two. So this zygote will undergo mitotic division and the zygote will move through the isthmus of the oviduct. So when they start with this mitotic division, this zygote will slowly start moving towards the uterus. From the isthmus, it will start moving towards the uterus. Okay, and we call this process as cleavage. So what is cleavage? It is the repeated mitotic division of the zygote resulting in an increasing number of cells. So when the zygote undergoes mitotic division, what is happening? One cell will divide into two. So zygote is a single cell, right? So this cell divides into two. And again, these two cells will again carry out mitotic division. They will divide into four. So like that, division of the cells happen when the zygote undergoes mitotic division. And we are calling that process as cleavage. So it is the repeated mitotic division of the zygote resulting in an increase in number of cells. Cleavage means it is the process of mitotic division which happens in the zygote, and this will result in increase in the number of cells. So zygote number of cells and now it will be increasing. Okay, and when this zygote, when it moves through the isthmus to the uterus, it forms 2-celled, 4-celled, 8-celled and 16-celled structures. You can see it here. So this is the zygote. So this zygote will divide. It has fused up together and it will divide by mitotic division to form 2-celled stage. Okay, and then when the two cells again undergo mitotic division, this will divide into 2 and this cell will divide into 2. So again it becomes 4. And from this 4, it again becomes 8. So this 4 will divide again and it will form 8. And this 8 cell will again divide and it forms the 16-celled stage. Okay, so when the zygote moves through the isthmus of the oviduct towards the uterus, it forms 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells which are called as blastomeres. Okay, so these cells commonly they are called as blastomeres. So these blastomeres are nothing but they are types of cells which are formed after this cleavage process or the cell division process. Okay, ഒരു പ്രാവശ്യം mitotic division നടന്ന് form ചെയ്യുന്ന cellsനെയാണ് we are calling it as blastomeres. Okay, and the embryo with 8 to 16 blastomeres. Blastomeres are nothing but the cells which are formed by division. These cells, okay, we are calling it as blastomeres. So they form 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells called as blastomeres. So these daughter cells are called as the blastomeres. Okay, so now the zygote has, the single cell has now become a 16 celled stage. Okay, now they have developed, they have been started developing, and they have now become an embryo. So zygote started developing and it has become an embryo now. So the embryo with 8 to 16 blastomeres is called a morula. It is termed by a name which is called as morula. Okay, so what is present inside this morula? They are the blastomeres. Blastomeres എന്ന് പറയുന്ന cells ആയിരിക്കും ഈ മോറുലിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ പ്രസന്റ് ആയിട്ടുണ്ടാവുക. So when the embryo with 16 to 16 blastomeres are formed, it is called as morula. So we can say that this 8-celled stage and the 16-celled stage of the embryo is called as morula. Okay, so it is termed as morula. Okay, so this morula again, it will continue to divide. So we know that multicellular organisms are made up of many number of cells. So this zygote has to go through such cell divisions to form a fetus or a baby, right? So this morula will continue to divide and they transform into a stage which is called as blastocyst. So morula will continue to divide and transforms into blastocyst. Okay, and it moves further into the uterus. So when the zygote, when it moves through the isthmus, it shows all these stages. It means that it completes the fertilization here, then it forms 2-celled stage, then it forms 4-celled stage, then 8-celled stage, then the 16-celled stage. Okay, so these structures, all these structures are formed in the oviduct itself, and when they reach the morula stage, that is a cell which contains 8 to 16 blastomeres are called as morula. So when they attain that stage, they will slowly reach near the uterus. Okay, so അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെയൊക്കെ ആ സൈഗോട്ട് വരുന്ന സമയത്ത് they are just forming mass of cells, and when the morula is formed, it will start moving into the uterus. Okay, so morula will continue to divide and it transforms into blastocyst and it moves further into the uterus. അപ്പോൾ ഇത് മൂവ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് ഈ ഫോർമേഷൻ ഒക്കെ നടക്കുന്നത്. Okay, so when it becomes morula stage, it almost reaches the uterus, and when it completely finishes the blastocyte stage, or when it reaches the blastocyst, automatically it will reach the uterus. Now let us see what happens to this blastocyst. So now the blastocyst has been formed. Let us see what will happen to the blastocyst after that. So the blastomeres inside the blastocyst are arranged into 2 layers. Okay, so that the blastocyst will have 2 layers. 2 layers ആണ് ഈ blastocyst ഉണ്ടാവുക. Okay, so the outermost layer is the trophoblast. It is called as trophoblast. So in blastocyte, the blastomeres are arranged into an outer layer which is called as trophoblast. Okay, and they also have an inner cell mass attached to the trophoblast. Okay, so this is how the trophoblast is arranged outside, and it has the inner cell mass. So the blastomere are arranged into an outer layer which is the trophoblast, and it also has an inner cell mass attached to the trophoblast. Okay, so this is how the appearance of blastocyst will be. So in blastocyst, the blastomeres are arranged into an outer layer called as trophoblast and an inner cell mass attached to the trophoblast. And this inner cell mass is nothing but it will be the cells which can differentiate into different structures inside the fetus. Okay. Now let us find what is the function of the trophoblast and the inner cell mass. So this trophoblast layer gives nourishment to the inner cell mass. You can see the part which is written as blastula, right? So this is nothing but blastocyst. So this why is it written as blastula? Because in case of mammalians, we call this stage as blastocyst or mammalian blastula. Okay, so the trophoblast is the layer which gives nourishment to the inner cell mass. You can see the cross section of the blastula, and inside this blastula there will be presence of some inner cell mass. It is like this, right? So you can see the outermost structure, which is the blastomere, which forms the trophoblast, and then inner is the mass of cell mass, right? And this trophoblast layer, it gives nourishment to this inner cell mass. Okay, and also it gets attached to the endometrium. So it is this layer which is called as the trophoblast. The outermost part ആണ്, outermost layer ആയ trophoblast ആണ് endometrium na kuda attach avunathu. I hope you remember what is endometrium. The innermost layer of the uterus is called as endometrium, right? So this trophoblast is the one who attaches to the endometrium. Now the inner cell mass, what happens to the inner cell mass? I told you that it will be differentiated to form different structures, right? So this inner cell mass will get differentiated into 3 germ layers, that is outermost ectoderm, then the middle mesoderm, and the innermost endoderm. Okay, and this 3-layered structure, which is called as gastrula, will form the embryo. So it is this structure, it is the mesoderm, endoderm, and the ectoderm, which gives rise to different cells that forms tissues, and then the organ, and then the organ system. Okay, so the inner mass of the cells are the embryo, which gets differentiated to form 3 germ layers. The outermost is ectoderm, middle is mesoderm, and the inner is the endoderm. So this 3-layered structure is the gastrula. So this is gastrula, and it forms the embryo. Embryo means which has the necessary embryo will contain necessary cells which differentiates into tissues, then the organ, and then the organ system. Now coming to the next process, which is the implantation. So we saw that the trophoblast is the one who will carry out this implantation process, or that part of the blastocyst is the one who attaches to the endometrium, right? Now let us learn how this happens. So the trophoblast layer then gets attached to the endometrium, and as I said, the inner walls will get differentiated. Now after attachment, you can see it here. This is the endometrium. It is the uterus layer. It is the innermost part of the uterus, and we can see the uterine cavity here. Uterine cavity is nothing but the space. Okay, and here we are able to find the blastocyst. So I hope you remember about the blastocyst. It has 2 layers. Outermost is the trophoblast. So it is the trophoblast which gets attached to the endometrium. Okay, understood it. So the endometrium, it implants the trophoblast in them. Trophoblast neana very implant cheyan allow cheya. So the blastocyst digests the uterine mucosa, that is the endometrium lining is digested with the help of the blastocyst, and the trophoblast, which is the outermost layer, it get attached to the endometrium. Okay, understood it? And after that, what happens? After the attachment, the uterine cells will divide rapidly. Okay, uterine cells will divide rapidly, and they will cover the blastocyst. So this is how they cover it. You can see the uterine cells which is covering the blastocyst. Okay, as a result, what will happen? The blastocyst become embedded in the endometrium of uterus, and this is called implantation, and it leads to pregnancy. Clear with this, children? So